Bill Hunt from Digital Bits. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your process in terms of producing the special features. For example, do you have a specific person or team at Bad Robot that you kind of bring in on all your projects and unleash? And is there anything in particular that's going to be on the DVD or Blu-ray that you're really especially proud of?
Well, we have a great group that worked on this DVD with whom we worked before. There are people at Bad Robot, notably David Baronoff, who does a lot of work with us on the DVD and online materials. Brian Burke and I obviously watch the cuts and the ideas, the proposals, and the final products, and give our notes. I think that in terms of the thing I'm most sort of excited about, like I said before, I'm just excited to have the special features that sort of show a little bit of kind of the personalities of the actors. I mean, even the gag reel, which I think is very funny, when you see Zachary screw up and kind of go from Spock to Zachary, like the back and forth is so funny to me, because he could not be less like Spock, and yet, he was so convincing, and to have him sort of bounce back and forth so quickly as he screws up, it just makes me laugh every time. But there's that kind of stuff, to see the personality of the actors, and just see how great they were off camera is wonderful. But again, the work of people like Roger Guyette at ILM, the design brilliance, I think, of Scott Chambliss, who had as hard of a job, I think, doing this movie as Chris or Zachary did, working on the redesign of these ships and the world that again, avid fans were so passionate about. So I feel like my favorite thing is sort of seeing those aspects of the production, spotlit and celebrated.
You're not one of those directors that sort of doesn't like to break the fourth wall. I mean, there are some people who don't like to show behind the scenes.
No. I mean, to me, as long as you're not doing it before the movie comes out, to me the thing that always blows it is when I've seen interviews and scenes, and I've seen a piece on how that set ends there and this green screen, and then I go to see the movie, and it screws it for me, because I'm like, I know I'm just taken out of it. So I would love to withhold that stuff, so that it's not until the movie comes out that you go, oh my God, that was genius, how they did that. And there's so many movies that I've seen on DVD where I've been so happy to get to see that behind the scenes stuff. So I don't want to withhold that. That seems silly. As long as it's not pre-release,
right.
I think you're in okay shape. And again, it's unfair to the artists who did the work not to celebrate what they do, because we should see it, and it's cool for people who care, for filmmakers and next generation of filmmakers to understand, oh, that's a way to do it, and they'll have a better idea for when they do it. Thank you.
I am Hercules from Ain't It Cool News. I wanted to ask you, sir, a very nerdy question. Nicholas Meyer, as you know, watched all the 79 original episodes before he directed Wrath of Khan. I was curious, I'd never seen anybody else ask you this question. How many of the original episodes had you seen before directing the film?
I saw most of the original episodes. I watched actually a lot of them with my kids, and they loved it so much more than I ever thought they would, and were scared to death. And it was so cool to see these episodes through, the eyes of, an 8-year-old, 7, 8-year-old.
How many more do you think you have to go to see them all?
First of all, you should come over. We should watch the other one.
I'm there. Send me Twitter.
But I want to speak just for a moment about Nicholas Meyer, Nicholas Meyer, who is an amazing director and writer, who was friends with my parents when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, among the other embarrassing things I would do, and there's a list of stupid things, but I had this, I would make these dumb comedy tapes. I would often, make prank phone calls and hold the phone and do things, but I would also, do it with friends, and Greg Grumberg and I would make, countless moronic comedy tapes. I vividly remember one night, though, when Nicholas Meyer was over for dinner, that he came into my room, and I was probably 9, maybe 10, and he and I made a tape together. And it was some stupid interview tape where he and I were like playing characters, interviewing each other. And he was just the sort of like guy who was willing to be silly and goofy. And I knew he was a writer, but I didn't really know much about. And that idea that later he would go on to direct a Star Trek movie, and then even later I would, is so weird to me. And I've never discussed this because it's obviously so painfully boring. But it was one of those things that, you know. And years later, he came to my bar mitzvah, which I really wish you'd all been there. And he gave me the unabridged, annotated Sherlock Holmes, which I still have, the 2-volume book. And it's just bizarre to me that because I was such a fan of the films he did, and really that was sort of that was the height of my Star Trek fandom, was when, you know, because I saw the first film, but then really when his films came out, I just loved them. But anyway, I always felt like a kinship, kind of because I knew that guy. And it was just very surreal to be someone actually in those shoes, getting to say action.
I'm gonna like stick in one rude follow-up.
Please, thanks.
Can you rule out Leonard Nimoy reprising the role of Paris in Mission Impossible 4?
How cool would that be? Like, seriously.
I think it'd be kind of cool.
Actually, it's funny. I just got a call that, which would be a very bizarre, for obvious reasons, bend in the sort of time-space continuum. But I got a call that Peter Graves is in great shape. I'm not kidding. I mean, and by the way, you know, I think as there was that period of time when we had Airplane, where all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I almost feel like you could sort of seriousize him again. You could sort of bring him back, you know. So whether it's Nimoy, who of course I have an incredible affinity for, or Graves or anyone, I think having, I actually tried to get Martin Landau in Mission 3 in a very small little moment just for fun, and was told he had no interest in doing it. But then when I met him after the movie came out, it was the greatest thing. We were at this restaurant in New York. There was some kind of it was like one of the TV upfront parties, and someone introduced me to Landau, and they take me over, and Martin Landau comes over to me, and he extends his hand, and he does this. He puts his hand out, and he goes. Like, that was the greatest thing.